Hey guys, I want to talk about an enlightenment principle that I've been studying. Is basically detach mentally from your own actions. Uh, Basically, not everything has to make sense. Learn to connect with the flow and whatever basically the flow asks you to do, you should do. Because if you think about how complex life really is, it's obvious to me personally that that we have set ways to be as well. So my personal strategy going through life is not to do too much thinking. I learned to attach basically to the flow or the will of God or whatever you want to call it. And not do too much thinking. Really just, I first learned about this when basically when I was very young, you know, I forget what it was that I was doing, but there was no context to what I was doing. But I did the right thing at the right time in a very obscure moment to do the right thing by connecting with the flow. I consider the past basically 30 years of my life. You know, I'm 30 years old and I'm officially like a man now. You know, you become an adult when you're 18 or 21, but you don't become a man until you're like 25 to 30. I really feel like I just became a man like this year. You know, and whether if you're a believer or not, I'm a believer in God, and this is my personal experience. I'm not trying to shit on anyone's point of view. I'm just saying, basically, learn to connect with the flow and detach from your own thoughts. And not everything has to make complete sense. You know, we have to learn why, if you choose to perform a function in the grand scheme of things, which I encourage you to, all of the effort that's been put into constructing our lives and the fact that you're not burning in hell right now, at least I assume you're not in hell right now, is a miracle. You know, life itself is a miracle. God conquered the universe constructed us human bodies, a human experience, and he did not design us to be like brainwashed little monkeys. But sometimes when you have to do your job in the grand scheme of things, that basically means that you have to detach from yourself, detach from your thoughts, and connect with the flow. And the frame of mind that I'm trying to describe is basically an energetic, a soul connection with the flow itself. So I think most people spend most of their lives just kind of bumbling around their life. That your job, that most people's job in the grand scheme of things is to do your job, you know. But I am an entrepreneur, and my work impacts potentially millions of lives. So all I'm trying to say is use your energetic system of control to connect with the flow, so you can kind of connect with the flow and realize that not everything has to make sense. Like, a lot of people are going to see this video and think that it doesn't make any fucking sense. But I want to bring you guys back to when I was about 14 years old. You know, life works with or without your understanding. Life works with or without your understanding. Whether if you have context for what you're doing or not, the result will be the same. Of course, we study our craft. I'm an entrepreneur. I study my craft in order to provide that context. But life happens with or without context. Context only usually exists for it to make sense, which is like a privilege given by God. If you don't believe me, say a prayer for something to work without context. And God already has a plan. God already has his plan for the way he wants things to work. God told me earlier today, he doesn't really give a fuck what I do. I choose to be a believer. You know, on behalf of my family, on behalf of my daughter, on behalf of the people that I care about, on behalf of my work, on behalf of myself, I choose to be a believer. And don't be scared of looking stupid. Don't be scared of looking stupid. You think of all the times you see someone out in public who just looks stupid. You got the archetype of a person that my grandfather used to call Joe Cool. It says there's a lot of Joe Cools in the prison system. Because if you must look cool all the time, it's just not good, you know. If everyone else is out in society looking fucking stupid, you may as well look stupid too. I always say, like, well, if I'm gonna look a certain way, I may as well look good while I do it. If I'm gonna be on the internet posting videos, I may as well look good while I do it, right? You may look at my hair and say that my hair doesn't make any fucking sense. Let me comb my hair for the virgins. So pretty much yeah, so if you have not yet found your energetic locus of control, is basically something I'm very familiar with, that I'm connected with almost all the time. That this energy that exists within my body, the cosmic force that exists within your body, I use that to actually control my body. I don't use my muscles and my joints and my limbs to control my body. I use energy to control my body. Everything runs off of energy. That's why we have to eat food. That's why, as only God can create or destroy energy. That's why our homes are run off of fuel, you know. Isn't it a little bit weird how, to me, is a little bit weird, you know, the fact that we have, that out with the old, in with the new, you know, we have to eat food and then it has to come out the other side, you know. I think that's a little bit weird, but that's the way it works. At least that's my understanding. I don't know why God would make us have to basically take a shit if we don't have to. So use the energy that exists within your body, the cosmic force that exists within your body, to connect to the flow. And if you have not found this energetic force that exists within your body, think about the deepest level of yourself. What exists within your bones? What exists within your flesh and your muscles is the cosmic force, is energy. So use that force to connect with the flow and understand that not everything has to make sense. in this video, I think I've done a good job at making everything make sense. But understand that not everything has to make sense. And understand that context only exists to make it make sense. Does that make sense? So we study to provide logical context of what the fuck we're doing, pretty much. That's the only reason why people go to college. That's the only reason why studying and books and knowledge and information exists, is to provide context in the logic of our minds. And the mind itself is a construct that God or the gods, whenever I say God, I'm really referring to many hundreds of thousands and millions of people who had a hand in constructing our lives. That's why I'm a firm believer in God and the God establishment, and I'm proud and happy and proud, as they say, to be able to play a part in it. Even if I am just the small fish in a big pond, you know, I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to provide this video for you guys today. Building a business, this is one thing I've learned, is that not everything has to make sense. But understand that you being the CEO of your company means that your business and your work impacts thousands and millions, and maybe even one day my business will impact billions of people. Maybe one day, you know, the entire world and entire generation will be affected by my products. Maybe one day. That's the goal, you know. And oddly enough, when you have a goal, you know, a lot of times you achieve that goal, you know. So I'm going straight for the top. You know, I want to make all the money I'll ever need by the time I'm like 40. I've learned, side note, a little treat for watching this video. I've learned to see money as like an old school principle that we used to use back in the day, is not to have a career. We've learned in the age of the internet that products tend to come and go. Businesses tend to come and go. You know, there's no promise that your business is going to be here 10 years from now. So really what you're doing when you're building your business is you're saving up for the long term. You're saving up for the long term. You know, this money, this 100 million that you make in the next 10 years, that you might make in the next 10 years, this is supposed to last you like the rest of your life. You know, and to even build upon it, and to, but not to go crazy and think that because you made $100 million, you're like a master, like Elon Musk exited PayPal with, I believe it was $190 million. And then he invested all of his money into the two companies that he's known for today. But he was the first person to agree that those two companies had a high likelihood of failure. But somehow he made them work. So pretty much, yeah, so I use my energetic locus of control to connect with the flow. I realize that not everything has to make sense. And pretty much I study like between like 8 and 14 hours a day just to provide context to what the fuck I'm doing. I don't think it's good if you don't have any context at all. You can't just do stuff without context, you know. But you study to provide context to make the dream work, right? Because of reasons that I don't really know why. We study to provide that context, and I don't think it has to be much more complicated than that. I study like 12 hours a day right now. I studied over 20,000 hours in my 20s to provide context to what I'm doing. And to provide for myself a reserve of information that I can refer to at any moment, at any time, and say like, oh yeah, I remember that. And if I study motivation for like 10,000 hours, it's because each one of these little mantras, studying motivation is not studying motivation. Really what you're doing is you're taking success principles and putting them in your brain and preparing for a future where that information will be useful. And that's it for the video.